I'd have to say what I really enjoy about Happy State Bank is the morale that we have. Part of that goes back to the ownership that we talked about. Everybody understands as an owner, we're going to think like owners and not like managers, and we truly have each other's back each and every day. So that this is teamwork. Everyone works so hard for each other, knowing that the ultimate goal is that each one of our customers is going to leave this bank knowing that we have given them everything we have as bankers to exceed any expectations they had out of our bank.
She's already made some positive contributions for us. She'll be taking over running the camera in the back and helping us, we hope, with a much more proactive media effort and just trying to get the word out on the different things that are going on and all the aspects of the city. So she'll be in with us today, and when we get done, if you'd like, please take time and say hi and visit with us.
So you're going to keep us all out of trouble.
I'm going to do my best, sir.
Thank you.
Good luck.
We need help.
I don't know, with Jim around.
And if not, Courtney's here. And
concentrate on Jim, okay?
Yeah.
can throw everybody's
You'll
bail.
notice in the meeting out here, the lawyer always sits by me.
Go figure.
Every day.
Well, are we okay to start, or do we want
We've got a few housekeeping items that we can kind of run through. And if need be, we'll start on the agenda, but we'll hold those presentations off. Commissioner Reed is here. Don't expect it'll be long, a few minutes now.
call to order?
Thank you, sir. A couple of quick announcements. Next week is going to be busy. Today's going to be busier than it appears based on the agenda, but next week is going to be busy. We will do your annual kind of state of the water and kickoff for your Every Drop Counts water conservation campaign. Thank you. This is an announcement that went out today, just a short while ago. The first effort, as it was last year, was very productive. There's going to be a roundtable with some of our top 10 water consumers and looking at it. They provide a unique viewpoint that I think is important we all keep in mind. And we focus on having water, being able to treat water and deliver water and make it available. For most folks, water is part and parcel of their bottom line. So this is something that we'll have going on tomorrow, and you'll have a full report on that as part of the efforts next Tuesday. So we've got that. Today you've got a couple of proclamations on your agenda for the National Groundwater Awareness Week. As you know, the City of Amarillo has water in 3 different groundwater conservation districts, and in fact we have some water that's in no groundwater conservation district. As part of National Groundwater Awareness Week, the 3 districts who have different regulatory authorities over our water will all be present today. Mayor, if you would like, we can have them come up, and I think we actually have a proclamation for each.
But they're a similar proclamation.
They're the same.
Okay.
And we could present those to those folks. So when we get started, Dean and I, there it is. Don't you over there, Nadia? Dean and I will be glad to help identify those folks.
We just he'd have been here on time except for that crossing. And some things are just more important. I understand, we're not arguing.
Wish I had the camera rolling.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. You know,
He's truly a servant leader.
he's
We're thirsty.
He's not very cute, but he's efficient.
It worked out well. I'm just about out of stalling and housekeeping. Excellent timing.
That's right.
Mayor, if you'd like, we could run through the agenda. We do have some guests here for that, and then we'll come back and pick up a couple of our discussion items for today. Also advise you that we will need some closed session time. We've got quite a few things going on that are starting to bubble up, and we need to bring those to your attention and get some thoughts there. Item number 1, approval of the minutes from last week. Any comments, corrections, suggestions? Ordinance number 2. This is the second and final for the rezoning of the tract immediately north of the existing Peaks Bus Park Field. Kelly, any comments? I can't find anybody today. They're all hiding. Kelly's always over there. Item number 3, appointments for boards and commissions. This is the final vacancy on the Traffic Commission. I believe the name that has been under discussion is Mr. Mark Mayer. Of course, as always, any nominees you would like to bring forward? M-A-I-R.
I did confirm with him that he would serve. He said he'd be happy to. I let him know about the meeting Thursday, so he gets some activities.
What if he
We'll see. I don't know if he can or not.
Okay, consent agenda. Consent item A, the purchase of tasers, cartridges, and batteries. Proprietary purchase, those are all protected trade territories, so that's why you want to see the vendor there.
Well, I'm not the expert. The expert is the only one sitting at this table that I'm aware of that has ever asked for and received being tasered.
That's not quite all true.
Chief, you still have that
You
film?
volunteered. You get that tape. You volunteered.
After he did it, it fell to the floor kicking, and I said, I've
I've
circled
obviously
this guy.
touched on a sore spot. I'm sorry that
You know, I think they saved lives on the police and the offenders, but if you ever have an opportunity to do it, take my word for it. Don't do it. Just take my word for it.
Here, in the interest of harmony and unity, I would move to item B.
Be a good idea.
Item B is the award of the contract to furnish and install the SCADA system. SCADA standing for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, more commonly known as the remote control. This is what will run the Potter County well field, pump station, etc. I think all of y'all have had an opportunity to see the end part of the SCADA system there at the Osage plant, where those folks are able on a 24/7 basis to monitor and control the entire system. Final note.
When will this be installed, by the way? It'll be served by someone.
This contract for the SCADA is scheduled to start within the administrative time of the contract. So by the end of March, by the end of April, I would say this contract goes into effect. It correlates with the completion of the wells and the permanent equipment being put in to be able to start it up under full production and operate it from there. So by the end of April, we hope to have most everything in. 3 of the wells are in permanent condition, being operated today. 8 more will be by the end of March, and then the remainder will be online in April.
Great.
Good deal.
This SCADA project, as the majority of the contracts on the Potter County well field, are below budget. So, you know, that project is going to end up with about a $15.5 million underspend. Of course, those are bond monies. They're not something we can necessarily just put back, but we are in the process of finding ways to use that for relevant system improvements that otherwise we would have funded with local capital. So we're real pleased to have that, pleased that both contracts came in the way they did. That's that many more improvements that we can do for the residents of Amarillo at the same price, not having to increase anything to do so.
Good. Pays to save money in government.
I used to say this.
Well, all of this is, to me, the significant thing about it is not only is it coming in under what we estimated probably it would, but then the price of the money that we're using to pay for it is historically as low as it has ever been. Some of it is 0% interest.
2 or something.
2.08.
Yeah, it's just wonderful.
Phenomenal effort. Texas Water Development Board, of course, provided 2 pots of money to us through that water infrastructure fund that you see referenced on the page, and I think the average interest cost is 2.08. Never get tired of saying that. The Osage project has some of the zero money that's in there. Item C, also a good and exciting project. This is the contract to rehabilitate basically a 2-mile stretch of Hillside/58th Street. This will take us from Bell all the way out to Georgia. This section will look like the section does between Bell and Coulter when we're finished. So certainly appreciate the commission's support in getting us ready to do that. I think we've got good bids and we're ready to get that going. Certainly would be an inconvenience while that construction is in process. We'll do what we can to minimize that, but I think the result at the end of the day is well needed progress out there.
So this is like the North Grand area, it's a complete rebuild, not like any of the overlay, a lot more expensive than overlays, is what we're trying to avoid.
That's correct, Mayor. This will take this segment out all the way down to the sub-base, and we'll start back up with it. Next week, you'll have your annual overlay project coming forth, and the overlay project is also larger than it would typically be because of the additional funds. Ideally, at some point in the future, we'll have very few reconstructs, and we'll keep up with them through the overlays.
And I know that those people that live out in that area that drive that, especially Hillside, but the whole thing, people knows.
Well, it's like the
Oh,
Grand Street.
that piece between Bell and I-27 is just a mess.
There's 97 votes between Bell and.
Who was counting?
Have nothing else to do.
Thank you, people, you ought to ride the rock.
I heard fast enough and it just hits the top.
That's
You
right.
won't know it. You're on the boat. Item D. Item D is also just a tremendous project, one that has been in the works for quite a while, one that would not be possible without the support of other parties that we have. In fact, over half of the money for this project is not coming from the city, and only a small amount of it is coming from the city's general fund. We have with us today, of course, Mr. Offerdahl, Mr. Henry Jansen. Henry, you're the president or the chairman? Yes, sir. President of the Amarillo Zoological Society, and I think the largest single piece of this funding is from AZS.
Yeah, I was going to introduce Henry if you got a second. It's been my pleasure for the last couple of years to work with the Zoological Society. We had our first organizational meeting as a group back in March 7th of 2007, so it's been 5 years. We got our 501c3 designation in May of 2009, and the board has really been a great partner with us and helping us get networking in the community to go out and to receive this type of support, financial support. But more importantly, the support has given us the opportunity to really grow the integrity of the zoo, not only in events, but in just the visitorship that we have going on at the zoo on a daily basis. Like our last fall's Zoopalooza, we had 1,200 people on Friday night and about 3,000 people plus on Saturday, which was over our capacity. The thing that I wanted to personally thank Henry and the members of the Zoological Society for helping us, because the mission of the Zoological Society is to promote the development, improvements, and awareness of the Amarillo Zoo, and its mission, and they've done really well. We've worked to help one of the bylaws that we have in our Zoological Society state that we're going to help support Amarillo Zoo and its goals. We've had an annual fundraiser called Zoopalooza for the last 4 years, and that's always been a fun event. Henry, you want to say a couple of things?
The board is made up of 11 people, and we have about 100 members in our society, and it's just been unbelievable the amount of community support we've received in our events, like I already talked about, the Zoopalooza and things like that. We're really fortunate to live in a community like we do. It's well supported.
Thanks.
Good job.
I'm impressed with the zoo admission. I mean, that's the biggest part of the money, it looks like. And the sky has been falling, and we were told that first charge the customer kind of thing, and look what it's done. Thank you for doing that.
Well, in addition to this, the zoo revenues fund a portion of the operations. Doing very well.
Good job, Zula Pazula.
I told Larry,
It's a lot of fun.
my daughter lives in Allen.
Zula, what is it? Zula Palooza.
Two of my grandkids.
Zula Palooza, it's a lot of
As we
fun.
speak.
Zula Palooza, yeah.
Any questions on the
James.
zoo education building?
What's your next project?
Well, there are several things. One of our main goals is try to get the zoo accredited with the American Zoo and Aquarium Society or Association. And one of those things is a clinic for the animals. That will be one. And we're also working on the zebra exhibit. So those are the two major items that we're looking for in the future. I think once we get that accreditation, it'll mean a lot as we go out and search for animals and those kind of things. It means a lot if you're accredited, if you're special class recipients for animals.
Good. Those kind of things like that, do those usually involve making a contract with a local vet, or is it some kind of a self-contained?
We have a veterinarian that takes care of the animals. And he just needs a place to work. It's not, and part of that accreditation is providing an adequate facility to do that. They're, doing the best they can. There's too many staff out of the zoo, but that facility would be very helpful.
I'm sorry, we need a consulting engineer for this.
We have to have an audio engineer, audio technical engineer. I promise, Jim, I'll quit reaching for you in a minute. Okay,
All right.
we are back live. Successfully performed other duties as assigned. Item E, dedication acceptance, is a public utility easement out by the Point West Business Place. Any questions, additional information on the agenda? Well, Mayor, I'd like to, at this time here, ask Chief Taylor to come forward. Chief is going to run briefly through the 2011 annual report for the Amarillo Police Department. And talk to you about some of the stuff going on there, some of the very positive numbers, and then be available for any questions.
Maybe Maryland's had a bad experience with that deal. I would encourage everybody. You're going to take one of those hits off the paper, it will certainly enlighten you as to all the tools we get to use. It's really not all that bad.
Chief, after I was volunteered for that by a commissioner sitting here, and I did that the next morning, I happened to run into Chief Neal out in the parking lot, and I said, Chief, that was really something. And he says, I heard you got tased. And I said, well, you did too. He says, no, I don't carry one of these things. If they carry one, they have to have been tased.
Correct.
And there's no doubt it is very enlightening experience. Well, the good news
Nor
is
do I want to know how effective the bullets are. I would take your word for it.
it's not near as effective as a bullet, but it's more than one. Well, the good news this year is the crime rate's down 13.4%. Nobody here from Channel 4 is there. Even though they yanked the silver lining out of it, it was actually a pretty good report. We had one adjustment to the crime report. We reported a 10% increase in homicides, which was just one. That was a misclassification, so actually there were no increases in the homicides. It's the same as last year, zero increase. The rates increased by 12 to 13.2%. Aggravated assaults increased by 25 to 3%. So really those percents sound a little high, but the numbers are not all that big. Fire marshal's officer reports 17 arsons over last year. That's a 31% increase. Again, that's not a big number, but the percent sounds pretty big. Robbery Ridge, Bird Ridge All Fest, those were the biggest towns. The biggest one was Bird Ridge at 22%, and Fest at 14%. So really overall, it's really, really good. And a slight decline in All Fest. So I think we can just attribute all that to really a better economy and a lot of direct controls. And I want to pass this around. This is kind of a representation of the last 50 months that we've been doing direct control. And the red line there is really just kind of a representation of direct control and how much we do. I really can't put a number to that because it's kind of mixed in with other numbers, but that gives you kind of an idea of the level of spending we're doing on direct control versus what the crime rate is. Some of that direct control now is on duty, so it's not being done only with overtime. And our last increase, or actually decrease in the crime rate right now for the last month is 6.9 down, as compared to last year, at the same time last year in the month. So as we continue to do these direct controls, I think it's having a good effect. I mean, that just shows you that the more guys we can put out there and put them to work in a directed fashion, the better off we are. And we can just throw them out there and just tell them to do their own thing. I don't think that's going to help. But doing these direct controls, the things we do with cops and directing their work and making sure they're out doing the things that we think are going to be most effective, which is getting after clear criminals and that kind of thing, that's the kind of result I think we're going to have. 50 months of doing this, I think, is a good indication that more staffing, doing the right thing, is going to provide good results.
How often do you get together and discuss what you're going to do about directed controls? How often are they modified?
We do this every week at a crime analysis meeting. Everybody comes together in a crime analysis meeting, and in that meeting, we tell everybody, here's what the hot spots are, here are the people we think are involved in this, and then the commanders then go out and direct their guys to go after those guys. And if there's, for instance, maybe a rise in robberies or burglaries, then we start doing some special assignments where we'll keep people doing a little surveillance there. And most of it is geared toward the theft end of it, because we know where these guys are living and having good success getting after them.
That's impressive.
That's really
The
good.
emergence on the graph is pretty telling.
I have a question, Chief. Something that kind of jumped off the page I thought was curious is, why is it that from year to year, for example, if you look at things like seizure of marijuana and cocaine and meth, I would think it would be pretty consistent year to year. Yet marijuana's dropped way off, meth jumped up in a way, cocaine was, I know cocaine's down nationwide.
Yeah, I think it's just what's being used out there, because we don't really go after anything in particular, like just only marijuana or meth or anything like that. We're going after what we find. I mean, so if it doesn't matter what they're dealing, that just happens to be what they're happening to at this particular time. We go after it all, and that's the result.
So when you come on the scene, it's like when you work the scene, whatever you find there is what you're cataloging. You know, I haven't really had the opportunity to talk to you. Do you guys actually do some drug interdiction stuff? Do you do all that?
Yeah, we don't do any drug interdiction in this. Really, the problem is in the city, there's so much traffic and so much local traffic. It's really hard to sort all that out. So you really need to be out in more of a rural area to make that effective. So if we ever get into doing that, we've done a little bit in the past, we're really going to have to partner with Colorado Range County to have the jurisdiction to be out there with us.
Somebody watches the gate.
Yeah. Okay, this little chart here, I think y'all have seen this before. This is just a listing of the crime rates for 2010. And if you look at our number there, I think it's up in the 6,400, 6419. So this year, our crime rate in relation to that chart is going to be about 5560. So pretty good drop off. You see there on the state average, it's down to 4236. So we still got a ways to go. I think just increased staffing and using good common sense on our deployment will help get us closer to that mark. Now, I don't think we're ever going to meet that mark, there are a lot of cities, small cities that really don't have much crime that are kind of skewing those state numbers. So you've got hundreds of little towns out there that don't have a lot, and they're all figured into that number. So, if you get close to that number, I think we'll be doing really, really good. Let's see, so far this year, the crime trends are about the same as last year. Increase in violent crimes, decreases in thefts. Most of that's in aggravated assaults. It's hard to control that kind of stuff because it's, like a lot of passion drinking, drugs, and we're generally not there all the time in bars and big parties and family fights and all that stuff. So that's what's driving all that. But again, the increase in is 3% last year. It's not a real big increase, but it is something I'm concerned about. Work those as we go along. I think the most effective thing we can do in those areas is the prosecution of anything. Let's see.
Dare I ask as to what I was saying, the status or the pulse or the on Oak Street?
As far as the crime down there, it's about the same, but I think as far as the bar goes, because we've been paying a lot of attention down there, the trouble seems to be less, but that's not to say there's still not some trouble down there. I mean, we still have fights and things like that. I don't know that we've had any, shooting out anybody shot, but occasionally get some gunshots down there. But it does seem to have calmed down a little bit, and that can be attributed to directed patrol. We still do that in the parks and some of the other things that we've been doing in the past. One thing the city manager asked is us to start kind of look at providing you some mapping information, so maybe we can provide a couple of maps that can show you the overall calls for service across the city and where the most hot spots are, and then a map heartland crimes, and do those in quarters so they're a little more understandable and not so
So busy.
Yeah, so busy, because a year's worth of calls for service, the whole map is just almost a black box. So we'll work on that, see what we can come up with.
T-shirts.
Let's see, on staffing, over the last couple of years, we've increased our staffing by 18. 3 of those are or going to be sergeants, and the other 15 are patrol officers. At the end of this year, we had a full staff of both civilian and police. And I can't say any time in my career that I ever remember being fully staffed. That is astounding. Since then, we've lost 3 officers by retirement and a couple of civilians that have gone on to what they claim are better paying jobs that I can't believe that. But that is really good staffing. I mean, that just, I hope, shows that people like to work in the police department. And of course, the economy always has a little bit to do with it, but our economy's gotten better, so I think guys are enjoying the job and getting to do the things that policemen like to do. I think it's showing in these results here. Of those 15 guys, we've taken 6 of the last academy that came out, and they've been assigned to a directed patrol. It's a permanent duty for them. It's not the same as 6 guys. We take 6 of what we consider to be motivated guys, and so 6 motivated guys are assigned every night, 365 days a year to this squad, and they'll go out and do direct patrol in addition to what we're doing on overtime. They're working I-40 motels real heavy, and we can already see that it's dropping the crime rate. And that's been real effective, and hopefully, if we continue to increase staffing, we'll try to double that to 12 officers next year. If we get 12 that we're asking for this year, we're going to look at doing the bar spot like we talked to, up to 12 officers. That'll be an additional 2. And then 2 of those will be field sergeants, and then 1 additional sergeant for the detective division. Then we'll start looking at staffing the detective division more regularly.
Is the caseload for detectives and the average caseload simply because of increasing the number of detectives? They're both down considerably. Detective caseload and then the per detective caseload average. It's not a page number, but it's dropped considerably over the last 6 years, 7 years. Is that because you've added detectives?
Yes. We have moved, I think, three or four positions into detectives out of other places.
Okay.
One of the last ones we did was our professional services, which takes care of the accreditation best practices. That was a sergeant position. I moved a corporal in there and brought him in, and he's now a detective. So yeah, we've added some manpower there to kind of help with that. We still do need to do some work on that just because even those caseloads are high for those guys. The recruiting so far, we've been pretty successful in recruiting. We're getting some good guys. Typically, we're getting about 200 applicants per academy. Well, this last one, I can't tell you how many criminals have applied to be police officers.
Well, you don't experience.
I mean,
Are they active or are they kind of retired criminals?
both, you have some that
Come from the dark side?
yeah, we reject a lot of them on their drug use, and some that's even very recent. But once we get all those weeded down, we take less than 10% of that 200, and then that's what goes into our cap.
Chief, is that an opportunity like to take care of some outstanding warrants?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They don't miss any opportunity. No, they weren't.
We've actually arrested a couple of them.
Oh, my goodness.
Can't hire you, but we got a room for you.
Free room and board.
Room and board.
Come on in.
So, once we hire those guys, they're taking about those 6 3/4 months in the academy. And we send them out on the street. Field training officer for 4 months, so that's 11 months in training before they can be out there and be a real policeman. So it does take a while to get them out there and on their own where they can do us any good. So naturally, that's the.
But Chief, even after that 11 and a half months, they're not just turned completely loose.
Yeah, they start from, because of the last 4 months they're coming is with their field training officer. Now, I say completely, they do have a supervisor that watches what they do.
Everybody does.
But basically, they are now by themselves able to operate on their own. Unless they're having problems, then we take them back to remediate them, or we kick them. And last thing I got really kind of noted is, well, a couple last things. We bought this parking patrol vehicle and put a high-tech system in there. That has produced, I think we've been using that about 3 months, and that has produced as much production as the whole year last year. So it's real effective, and that has really turned a 2-man job into 1 person doing it. So I think that's been a good deal. And I don't know that we're ever going to need another one unless y'all really expand downtown parking and town parking and that kind of thing. This ought to take care of everything we need for the foreseeable future. It's all done automatically by computer. Even the tickets are written by an electronic device, so it's pretty automated and it's working really good. It takes pictures, all that. It's a good deal. And our last deal from the traffic board on the wireless communication thing, I read their draft and that looks really good. I like the way it's written. It really kind of bands it all, gives us the discretion to set some tolerances on that deal. I think it'll be easier to enforce.
Cell phone.
Yeah, the cell phone deal. So that's going to be a good deal. Crime Stoppers program is really going good. We've got 3 awards last year. Crime Stopper Coordinator of the Year for Sean Slover. He got Officer of the Year. He's really doing a good job, and the program has been, I think, really successful, and it's part of this. Every tip we get is going to a cop squad or the director patrol guys, and we're working all of them, and I think it's showing a good result. Yeah, it's been a good deal. We've got a bunch of good guys, so when they're doing good, I'm doing good.
That's good.
All right.
Report.
Thank you.
Report, Chief. Thanks for what you do.
Any questions?
Stay safe.
If not, I'm going to ask Mr. Michael Rice to come up and kind of walk us through the proposed ordinance change regarding the driveway and parking manual and the various technical specifications and so forth to go with that. And Michael, if you would, maybe kind of start by going ahead and setting that stage of how basically all of our other technical specifications are handled, and then where we are with this.
I'll be glad to do that. Let me just start at the beginning as far as the timeline of chronology, how this all developed. Through the years, I guess about 4 years ago, traffic engineering was given to me for the first time. Prior to that, it was not within the Public Works Division, it was in a separate division. We had some reorganizations, we had some staff members that moved around, and at that point, traffic engineering and traffic field offices were moved underneath the umbrella of Public Works. Prior to that, I didn't really care much about traffic, to be honest. It wasn't my responsibility. But took that task or that project on and met with Taylor Whitrow and started looking at some different things. And we just looked at some of his long-range plans, things that needed to be really addressed. And one of them was looking at the driveway and parking manual. That manual is actually a guidance document, at least what I thought was a guidance document, to help that staff and that group of people to decide what was going to be appropriate as far as the driveway openings and also the layouts of parking lots within the city of Amarillo. So in that process, Taylor was about to retire for the most part, so we went through and we looked at some of his comments, and just upon the time we were hiring Jihad, we went through that, and Jihad, we asked him to interact as well, and we put some things together, put some recommendations together, and we decided probably the best thing to do is to run this through the Traffic Commission. Let them take a look at it, hold some public hearings, get some input from the general public, see what their comments basically were. We went through that process, met with the commission, actually held a work session to go through the driveway and parking manual page by page to kind of show what we were looking at as far as recommendations, things we consider the improvements. We had one person show up, which was Joe Shane, who basically came in and said, I understand what you're doing, and I just want to tell you I really like this, because what happens lots of times as an engineer, we'll go out and we'll tell our clients we really think this is the proper way to handle this. But when it comes down to it, he's paying the bill, and if he wants to do that and the manual allows him to do so, even though we think it's a bad idea, we pretty much have to do what our client tells us to do. So when you start shoring some of this up and filling in some of those gaps, making it what we appear to be a more safe, more advantageous policy, we really appreciate that. And so that's what basically took place in the work session. After the work session, we held a public hearing and a traffic commission meeting, had one person show up, a representative from Toot and Totem, basically just wanted to know, okay, why are we doing this? What is all this based upon? Taylor had actually gone through and looked at some other manuals and some other designs statewide, the cities, what they were doing. And what we found is that we are very, very lenient. The manual itself was originally adopted, I believe, in 1976. Through the years, there's not been a lot of revisions. However, we're not the same city we were back in the 70s. The volume of traffic, the volume of people has grown immensely, and in some areas it's just flat exploded. And what we found is that while we thought we were being very helpful to our public, we were actually hurting them, because we were allowing driveways almost any place you wanted one. And in some of the older parts of towns, as a matter of fact, you'll probably even drive by, you'll see that there is no curb and gutter. It's just all laid on that the street and the parking lot, really there's no distinction between the two. That used to be common practice. But what we're finding is that just creates a lot of chaos, because there is no direction, there is no guidance as far as where to enter, where to exit. I tried to eliminate what we call a conflict point, where two lines of traffic can actually cross. So through that process, we responded to the questions about what we did and why we did it. And I was real excited because we were making some progress. And then I found out that the driveway and parking manual was not just a guidance document, but it was actually contained within the city of Amarillo ordinances. So that creates a little bit of a problem for me. If it's an ordinance, I can't just go out on my own and make any type of change. So we backed up and we started looking at how this process works compared to how that works in other departments. For example, in the engineering department, we'll have a city engineer, and by ordinance, he's authorized to make decisions and to create and set policy based upon good engineering practice. He is an engineer licensed and governed by the state of Texas. He has certain requirements that he's supposed to meet. And using that engineering judgment, we give him the authority to decide what types of materials do you use when you build a street. How strong does the concrete need to be? What type of reinforcement? What types of materials can you use? All of those things are part of his venue because that's his area of expertise. But with the traffic engineer, we have not allowed him that opportunity to act as a full-fledged traffic engineer. Every decision that we make as far as the policy to change, since it was created by ordinance, must be changed by ordinance. So we backed up and we met with the legal department and we asked them to create an ordinance that would basically take this out of the ordinance structure and then actually put it under the umbrella of the traffic engineer himself. So that is why we have brought to you today a recommendation to actually remove some of these sections. Probably the best example is there's a big list of charts and drawings in the back of this section that deal with driveways and parking lots. And to change the width of a driveway or to change the location where it may or may not go requires your permission. We think that's pretty much an overkill. We think that's something that really the traffic engineer, he should have the authority to do that. He should have the expertise. If he doesn't, we probably need a different traffic engineer, in my own honest opinion. So what we've done is we have now taken the manual and we've marked through that. And we have presented what we think are some very positive changes. We've kind of narrowed the liberal allowance of driveways as far as how many and how big they can be and locations. Probably one of the best examples, and I'm sure you may have seen this yourself, the new Chick-fil-A over at 26th in Georgia. If you'll notice where the driveway locations are on that piece of property, they are not anywhere close to the intersection of 26th and Georgia. If this same store had been built 20 years ago, I guarantee you the driveway would have been right there at the intersection on both streets. And what that does, it creates conflicts about people trying to get in and people trying to get out. By moving those driveways away from those intersections, we're actually creating a much safer traffic situation. We're actually increasing mobility. And in all honesty, those are the main things that we're trying to present to you today. When you look at the actual driveway manual itself, we've actually created a new table which actually shows driveway frequencies based upon classification of the street. Where a driveway goes in arterial is going to be handled much, much differently than a driveway in a residential subdivision, and rightfully so. So that in a nutshell is really what we're looking at as far as making those changes.
Well, out of all of our development policy stuff, this is the only or one of the only that's part of an ordinance rather than under the purview of the...
That's what I understand. Even in the utilities division, they have the authority under their own rules to decide what type of class of pipe to use, what type of materials are acceptable. Can they use plastic? Must it be some other material, metal, concrete? But in this situation, and I don't know why, maybe it was a situation that they wanted to give more control to the commission, or maybe they wanted
this
to take...
commission?
Yes, sir. Or maybe they wanted to remove that from the traffic engineer himself. I don't know if that was a political decision, or if it was based upon some special circumstances. But after a full review, I don't find that there's a need to continue with that same format today.
I know an example. What triggers it to be changed? For instance, the AT&T store where the old car lot was, or a new car lot on 45th and Coulter.
Yes, sir.
They blocked off some driveways there with the bumpers, painted them orange and done that, and moved those back from the corners, or from the edges. I mean, they've done what you said.
Yes, sir.
Was that triggered by a change of ownership? What did that?
That's a great question. The answer is it was based upon a change in the property. When it changed properties, they submitted a new plan to building safety. The traffic engineer at that time went down and visited with him and said, you really need to close this. But then he ran into that Pandora's box. I want you to close as a traffic engineer, but the manual, the law, the ordinance says you can do that. So they were willing to work with us in that situation. It really kind of ties our hands when the law says you can do something, but he knows in his heart that that's not right.
I know we have to fix things that are wrong, but there's nothing that's going to allow with this for somebody to go back and impact a business that's been there for quite a while and have some pretty due process. I mean, there's nothing that's just going to allow you to go back and say, hey, you need to change all your driveways.
I don't think that that's one of the provisions we're looking at. Most of the stuff we're looking at is talking about when somebody comes in with a driveway permit, if somebody comes in with a new development, we would look at it under the existing new rules.
Unless there was some other reason,
right?
Change the streets or something like that.
We're changing use of a property that was being operated as one type of use. That use ceases and a new use starts.
I'm not always personally in favor of grandfathering forever, but in this case, I don't want to pull the rug out from under somebody. None of this will do that, from what I can tell.
Not best I can tell. I think there is one provision in the ordinance that does allow that if there are, for example, way too many driveways, the city finds it in their best interest to go in and to close one.
Sure.
That we could do that, but at our expense. But once again, to do that, there's actually a process where they can go through and they can appeal that to the traffic commission. So there is a way that they can actually go through and be heard. If it's not just the engineer makes a decision, it's a done deal.
I noticed that some of this was taken by the traffic commission last fall.
That's correct.
November.
has this been adequately aired with the public and opportunity for, I don't know who it would be, I guess commercial developers, to look at it and pick at it and
I think that the answer is yes. Back when we had our public hearings, we sent out notices to all the developers, and we sent them out to the engineers themselves, the people that are in the business, to the architects to say, this is what we're looking at. We had 2 responses, one from Jill and then one from representative from Toot and Totem. And the one from Toot and Totem basically just went, how's this going to impact my business? Much like your question, is this going to have a negative impact upon me? The answer is I don't think it's going to be negative. We're really trying to do something that's going to further develop people getting in and out of those businesses safely. And it's not much different than the downtown urban design standards. There are restrictions in there as far as driveways, which are much more restrictive than what we have in here.
Let me ask just a question.
Yes, sir.
Back, remember when we redid the building safety standards and we adopted the international standards? Because one of the problems had been that as people go through and start to undertake projects that, well, there was really no adequate standard and construction levels were thought to maybe be inadequate. And maybe sometimes people in the department had too much latitude in approving or not approving things and it created problems for us. There's no chance that there's going to be a big philosophical divide here that, because on its face, it kind of looks like rather than standardizing everything as we did in building safety, maybe we're not standardizing it now and giving it a lot more latitude for department interpretation. I'm concerned about the public feeling like, well, this is all at the discretion of somebody at the city and there's no hard and fast rules. You don't think there's any danger that it's going to be interpreted that way?
Well, there's always going to be people that disagree with us, but honestly, no, sir. We're actually following standards that are not just germane to Amarillo, but if there's something that's being used both statewide and nationwide. If you look at what's going on, even when we hired Jerry from Nevada, having him come in and look at this, he's like, oh my gosh, y'all are so liberal. They don't allow any of this in places like that. I think that what it means is that we've been so developer-friendly in the past that we've allowed them to do things even at our own demise. So all we're trying to do is go back and slowly fix that. One thing in the ordinance, though, that we have identified is that if we do make changes in the future, we will not make them willy-nilly, if you want to use that term, or very quickly. We will only be allowed to make changes once every 12 months. Once we make a change, we will not be able to make another change to this policy for at least a 12-month period. And that forces us to be very consistent on what we do and to think it through very carefully. And even in that process, once again, we'll send out notices, we'll have public hearings, we'll actually entertain comments through the traffic commission, and we'll consider all of that and then make a best decision based upon all the information provided.
In that kind of a situation, will projects that are already in the works kind of be grandfathered as well?
Absolutely.
What about
There's a vested right under, I start a project under a particular building code, street, drainage, etc. And that is the code that governs that project through its initiation.
What about
And that's a great question. That's another reason to not make it so open that these can be changed at every quarter, or, you know, hey, we just looked at this project and it's going to work, but we see a future negative impact, so let's change that.
Or I
No.
changed my mind.
Exactly.
That year's time frame has nothing to do with the review process, though. That doesn't get extended. You get approval on a review for a change. Somebody says, we got to do this. I review it and say, I don't like that as an owner. And it doesn't take that. It doesn't take a change in the ordinance to make an exception.
No, it's not.
Okay, so there's no wait period for that.
No.
Of course, this has been in place before they put the drive entrance into Sam's across from the post office.
Well, for instance, yeah.
That's a dangerous area.
Even where we used to turn in going south into our business, that's unusable because so much is coming
Right.
north that you don't even try and turn there. You're out of your mind to do it. It's all those fast foods. But you know, when in '82, there was only about 5 businesses close to us. No Sam's, no
It's like putting driveways by the corners. When there's a very low traffic count, those work.
They don't work
As your
now.
loads build up, they're de facto closed driveways. They're still there, but you can't get in and out of them.
I have a question that affects both of you all. I know we had a couple of accidents with employees where we had to get accident reports. And and I have to pull these to get the exact, it's a long time ago, but we pulled the accident report, and we were always concerned about that corner just past us where Fiesta Foods exits, and you're trying to get across to the post office. That's where those accidents were. They were both listed at I-40 and Ross. They were listed a block north. Probably just somebody quickly notating it. They were not accurate. How do you get data that's good to do these if those accident reports aren't exactly accurate?
And that's right on the police report itself?
Yep, they couldn't even find it because we said it's whatever that street is, 27.
Are you talking about the one right behind the car lot?
Yes, between us and San Fiesta. And what we found them finally, but they were inaccurately noted at I-40 and Ross, and there were two of them, and we thought, somebody's just not doing this correctly, and then it gives us horrible data because we couldn't build a case for putting a light in there or doing something else. But I just wonder how we monitor the accuracy of things that build those reports. Is that something that's on
There's
the
something strange about that street because that came up on when we were doing not the GPS of the street, but our street file, and that street, there's something unusual about it.
Because it changed from Ross and Mirror right in there somewhere, nobody knows where, I don't think.
Same as for Osage.
Osage from Ross to Mirror.
Yeah, but no, it's not, it's the street that.
And it doesn't, it curves back. Anyway, I just hope
Maybe
that
unnamed
those
street
things
or
are
something.
accurate. That's more for the police chiefs. Those things are really accurate about where those are for traffic decisions later on. The other one that I'm curious for both of you about is, with us spending millions of dollars putting sidewalks, and we've got potentially a lot more, we have to put the handicap curb at the edge, or at the corner. Is that just a convenience so people can park on the sidewalk? Is parking on the sidewalk here, when we consider we put those in for handicap, for kids accessibility, for safety with young people with bikes under 7 or 8 or whatever it is, and then people just indiscriminately park on our sidewalks. Why do we turn our head to that? It seems we do. I can show you cars that are parked here.
I can partially answer that for you. Back when I was on Beat 35, it's the northeast in town, we got a complaint on the kids having to walk in Middle Street during the winter time. And so I was a beat officer then. So I started a campaign, and it took 2 days for me to get on the news. Why in the world is the police department now, after 30 years, making us get off the sidewalk? And so I worked that
sidewalk.
I worked that for about 2 or 3 years and had it pretty well cleaned up. And so it's really a matter of how tough you want the police department to be on it. And it has to be done every day if it's going to be done.
And every place.
Every day, because you do it over here, and then they're going to go down the street and complain about why aren't you doing it over here?
Well, it seems ludicrous to me to allow people to park on the sidewalk. I don't know.
We don't allow them, they just do it.
So how much political heat do we want to suffer over that? Because it'll be a bunch.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Sidewalks, front yards, and commercial vehicles and residential.
You know your neighborhood's running downhill when they start parking on the sidewalk.
Or in their yard.
Or in their yard.
Thanks for all the work you've done on that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry it's taken so long to get it to you, but we appreciate your consideration.
I would love to see, and I'm not asking for this, but, there on North Bell, where we've got the Lowe's and the Walmart and the Party Store, and you would love to see how in a perfect world, how that would have been laid out. Because isn't it something?
It has a very unique feature in the middle of it.
That's where Lowe's is.
Yeah, but on the Bell, North Bell.
Where you have controlled access and penetration.
Oh, my God.
Split lead, yes, it has some very unique features. We'll be glad to get you also, I didn't send it out in the interest of the forest, the most recent consideration of that revision. Is this something you'd be willing to have us bring forward on the agenda next week for possible action?
Yes, this is exactly the kind of thing that you really don't get it on people's radar until it's cost.
Yes.
And then we'll start hearing about it, just like the International Building Safety Standards. And so I'm not surprised you didn't get in there. But the way you do things, they're always well thought out, they're always very logical, so I think we ought to just proceed.
Well, if the media takes it this week and pursues it with its comments.
Well, I I just think it's just a follow up to our strategic plan. We're doing things that are modernizing our ordinances and our policies and so forth, and so I think everything's going on the right track.
And making our staff more efficient.
Well, we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. We'll send out clean copies and the draft manual as it sits. I do think, Merlin, that you're right. We'll put it back up on the radar, and we may well receive comments for next break.
Let it be done. Let it be done.
With that, Mayor, I'd ask maybe for a closed session. I think we can see you. Or